Looks like we've got a good crowd.
Yeah, I think so. And I know this morning a handful of people from the Formulas channel are talking about joining as well. So
I love it that you have a cat. It's fantastic.
where's the cat?
Gareth has a kitty.
Oh,
Kitty!
yay! I have Corgi. She was asleep.
Oh, and corgis. I love it.
Well, didn't somebody post in Slack yesterday that we want pets on our video meetings?
Yeah.
I saw a post that Google's cloud dev relations now has a requirement that if we hear the dog or the cat, we see the cat.
There was a whole article and a series of tweets by the New York Times that was pointing out, or the person was pointing out that person was expressing their opinion that people didn't want to see pets or children on video calls as people are working from home. And as I'm sure everyone would have predicted had they known, Twitter just took them to task. The Twitter masses at large took them to task, and they deleted the tweet and the article. And
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that seems clearly obvious to me.
I think it's a nice change. Happy to see pets.
Anything to add some levity, right?
Right, and to understand that we're all human, right? First and foremost. Which, by the way, I will say to everyone, I hope everyone is well. I hope this finds you well. We understand that everybody's human and going through similar trials as we are as well, and adjusting our work schedules. And some of us, it's not anything new, but some of us it is. But no, you're among friends. Should we go ahead and get started? Looks like we've got a good amount of people.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, everybody, good to see you all. I'm glad to see another bigger group in the open hour. I'm excited to see these continue to grow, and wanted to let you know that I know I said I was going to put together basically a Google survey form where you can submit your suggested topics for this agenda. That form is live. I just shared a link in the chat. But if you have things that you want to talk about, that's a good place to submit those to me. If possible, if you suggest a topic, also try to attend that open hour so that you can talk about it live. But that's something that is new. It just came out on Tuesday. And then open hour videos have been going up online along with the discussion summaries that you all had requested. So we have all that stuff, processes for that in place. Everything's good to go. We have a ton of virtual events coming up. We have weekly virtual meetups starting April 8th. Tom Hatch is going to talk about an overview of POP. The next couple weeks is going to be a more in-depth talk about POP. And then we're working on a meetup for Germany, one for France, one for the Baltimore area. Some of these meetups are SaltStack meetups, but we've also had a DevOps and a Python meetup leader org contact us because they wanted to see if we could host meetups for them. So that's another option for meetups. They don't necessarily have to be salt related, but if you're doing a salt related topic at another sort of meetup, let me know and I'll see if I can get you a meeting room or some advertisement and promotional for that. On a semi-related note, kind of the topic of the day is that, so last week in this work group we had talked about creating, or in this open hour we had talked about creating a formulas work group. And the consensus was that it's time for us to actually form that work group. And so I've spent some time the past few days talking through identifying a work group captain. We have that. We are working on trying to find then the person from the Salt Stack engineering team who will help facilitate that meetup. And then I'm not sure if is MyFi on or Mai on. Okay. We may have some members of the Formulas Slack channel joining us a little bit later, so we'll pick up this conversation about formulas when and if they're on. Are any of my formula people here right now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it sounds like there are some questions about formulas, about kind of the relationship between formulas and the main project, whether the SALT formula team should become an official working group, if there's a plan to develop any sort of repositories for the formulas, and then talk about formulas problems. So those are all things that are on people's minds that hopefully the formulas work group, it will just address, and we can open up to a discussion here. If anybody has anything to ask or say about formulas, go ahead.
Shall I just kick off here?
Yes.
Right, I'm Imran. I've been taking maintainership over the SART Stack formulas all for the last year or so, and it's a great thing. We're really happy that the formulas working group is being considered. I think what we'd like to cover is that there's a few points we've raised together, and the number one being the relationship between the company and the formulas org, because we don't quite understand how we all fit together. So if we could get some feedback on that, that would be great.
Does anybody have an answer to that or something you'd like to explain? And if we don't have answers to these questions today, there's certainly things we can bring back up in the future with, you know, maybe Tyler or Tom or whoever wants to pipe up for the conversation. So
I don't know if it's an official anything, but at least in the past, my understanding was that the formulas was always a community effort. And of course, we support and encourage the effort, but it wasn't ever anything formal or formally attached to Salt Stack as an organization. So it, you know, technically independent and, you know, et cetera, but that could just be historical and maybe even a misunderstanding, but that's always been the understanding I've had about kind of where the organization, the formulas organization lives.
So when we say it's not formal or attached, in which direction should we be heading? Like, we've done a lot of work in the last year to sort of standardize across a large number of the formulas, but we were trying to work towards a goal. It was something that Daniel had started up, which was working towards getting these SPM compatible. And what we're not sure of now, since Daniel had to step back a bit, is where should we be heading now? Like, what should our goals be for the year to come?
Was that Daniel Wallace who was really heading that up?
Yeah, that's correct. Daniel was doing a lot with us earlier on before he had to step back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that for a lot of the work groups and formulas in particular, we're looking at that to make sure that we have some more outlined goals for you guys as far as what's happening and where things are going. And I know some of those have been formed within the work groups specifically, and we're looking to break that out further. Isn't that right, Cassandra?
yes, that's right. That's part of why we're getting the work group going and why we're having this conversation today.
Sure. And so I don't know that any one of us have those specifically, but I know that's something that we really want. And we really, I know that's also wanted by those that are in those working groups to have a driving force and to have somebody behind that from the organization. I know that doesn't totally answer your question, but I think that we're on a good path.
Do we have somebody in mind from Salt Stack that's going to be helping this work group? It seems like there's going to need to be some coordination.
Yeah, this topic came up about, I don't know, back in mid-January. Imran and then Tyler Johnson from Salt Stack had messaged me about whether or not there was a need to create a formulas work group, and at the time they didn't think that was needed. I did reach out to Tyler this morning to see if he's interested in being our salt stack kind of co-facilitator, but I'm certainly open for another volunteer or volunteers to do that. And then I was explaining that kind of my role within the work groups is to help facilitate more of the logistical end, so making sure things are promoted, identifying speakers, coordination, recording, upload, publication.
So it sounds like you would have that communication directly in those work group meetings.
Yeah, and just making sure that people know when meetings are happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Tyler was my first thought, but anybody who is, with any of these things, anybody who wants to help out is welcome to. Just let me know so I can get that taken care of.
Sure. Another thing we'd love to get a bit of feedback on is over the year we've been talking about this issue about storing data in pillars or pulling them out of the pillars, and there's been a lot of extensive discussion about that in Slack and other places, and we've tried to look into solutions, but we actually don't know what the official stance of SaltStack is. Is there a plan where we should be doing something else that's an official recommendation?
Can you clarify what you were asking? So
all right, sorry. Yeah, so what I mean is so this is a bit of a slightly technical question, but hopefully someone here can give us a bit of feedback. Where the documentation that we saw when we first came to SaltStack was to put a lot of the configuration into pillars, but we've since found out that that's not very good from a performance perspective, from the master's performance perspective. So we've been trying to pull that out and find a different solution, but there doesn't seem to be a clear way forward. And I'm asking, is there an official recommendation of how that should be done?
Yeah, Tom. Sorry, go ahead, Cassandra.
I was going to say, can anybody take that? Oh, there's Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hello. So there's a couple of ways to manage having lots of data in your pillars. Generally speaking, we would push you towards reserving pillars for a fairly limited amount of the data sets. There's a lot that you can do just in those Jinja map files, so that those are rendered purely on the target systems. And so really it boils down to questions like, does that data need to be secure? Are we using that data just as variables for states? Is this data that needs to be reconfigured specifically for the target minions? And if not, if those aren't the cases, then it makes a lot of sense to be able to come back and just say, hey, let's just put these as Jinja variables in a Jinja map file. Does anybody else have any more color on that? I mean, I'd like to kind of preface that with some other folks on the call might be a little more up to date on how to communicate some of those things, just because, to be perfectly honest, I don't write a whole lot of salt states anymore.
I was just going to ask just a clarification question to Imran. So you're asking specifically about using pillar in formulas, and my understanding is, like, originally pillar was used as the basis of the formulas to make it so that they're as dynamic and as dynamic as possible to work across as many operating systems and as many environments as possible, right? And so now you're running into the issue where that is because they're becoming so heavily reliant on pillar that it's not the best or most efficient way as far as the salt master. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. That's what we found out when we were talking with other users in other groups, like in the general group and other places. So we've been looking into other ways to address this, to make them more compliant with, masters that are running, hundreds or thousands of minions. So it's taking that data out of the pillar and putting it somewhere else. that somewhere else is what we're trying to define. What's the official recommendation about where it should go?
One of the other things I can probably add to that is that there's a few things that you can do in pillar storage on the master, which significantly speeds things up there. So that primarily revolves around not using YAML for your pillar, so maybe using JSON, or if you've got pillars that don't have templating, you can compile those down to message pack, which has many orders of magnitude improvement over parsing the YAML. Another option is to use the pillar caching system, which significantly lowers the amount of times at which the master processes the pillar. But again, with that said, there is a pretty solid question about extra location to store information. But I'll back off and see if Gareth has any more color there.
I mean, I think that's, I mean, obviously, like you know this stuff the best, Tom. But I think from like, as far as like using pillar, those are like good tips. I think really what, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, Imran, but I think what you're asking for is pillar the best option to go for? And if not, is there a better solution that you and the rest of the formulas group should be looking at in terms of trying to make the formulas as dynamic as possible?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, what's the alternative to pillar?
Yeah, and I would say the best alternative to pillar when it comes to configuring those states is to use those map.jinja files, because those don't have to be rendered or checked or validated on the master. It allows all that information to be passed to the minion, which gives you that benefit of distributed computation.
Okay, that's great. There's some of the other formula guys here. Would any of you like to just join in and bring some points up? Okay, perhaps not. There was one other question. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It was to do with SPM. When we were working with Daniel last year, we were getting a lot of the formulas. We were reshaping them to make them easier to use with SPM, getting the formula profile in place and semantic versioning and all the rest of it. How would we, because since he sort of stepped back, the last thing I heard him saying was he was trying to find out if SPM could be separated from the main repo so it could be worked on. I don't know much about SPM, but what I'm asking is there a way of getting that link working? Because we've got about 60 odd formulas now configured, but at the moment they're not really being used in the way that we got them shaped up to.
I would love to see SPM get separated from the main repo. There's a lot of components actually that I think would be great to separate from the main repo, and it would potentially be worthwhile to for me to sit down with. I'd be more than happy to sit down with anybody who'd be interested in helping us separate SPM from the main repo and make that into a standalone project. And I don't think it's something that would be too terribly onerous, but we'd need to double check and make sure that all the hooks are in the right places just in case.
All right, fantastic. I'm done from my side. If there's anything you want to ask me or any of our guys so we can explain things that might help with setting up the formulas working group, I'm here. I'm here to answer anything you need.
And we definitely appreciate you guys. You guys do a bang up job. You're fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And to answer a previous question, Tyler just messaged me and said that he's willing to facilitate from the Salt Stack engineering end. So next steps as far as getting a work group going is for Imran, Tyler, and I to just find a date and time and start getting it scheduled on that monthly recurrence. So thank you all for bringing this up. This is, I know I keep pointing to the documentation work group because they're another example of enough community members said, hey, we need a work group around this. Somebody volunteered to lead it. And so now that group's been running for 3 months. And that's all it really takes is somebody to say, hey, I want this thing. And I'm somebody to say that they're willing to lead. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Any final words on pillars before we move over to 3000.1? Nope. All right, Megan, you want to give us a status update on 3000.1?
Yeah, we were trying to release this week, but we kept running into some Mac build issues. We're investigating another issue right now, but the target is next week to get that out. So yeah, that's the update.
What was it that is our hold up again?
I'm investigating it right now. Okay. There's some failing tests. I don't think it was included in the package. I think it was included in the tests actually. Now that I've looked at it again and Shane's pointing it out to me. So I gotta investigate that. But if we don't have to rebuild, then we would just be building Linux packages at this point. So still next week, regardless of the issue.
Okay, great. And then I know Gareth was going to talk about backlog review status and some PR analysis.
Yeah, so as I'm sure everyone is aware, when we switched over from having the 3 branches or down to the single master branch, we had a number of PRs that had previously been merged into other branches, older branches, develop, as well as our current, like future beyond 2019.2.1 branches. So we compiled a list of all of those PRs that were not in, that didn't make it into what became the master branch. And then identified ones that could easily be merged into the master branch, and created there was about 150 or so PRs that were merged over the last few months. So that left us with a still quite sizable backlog of PRs that needed to go into the master branch. Thanks to a lot of the community members who have taken on the task of merging theirs as well as other PRs that have been identified. So we've gotten down to roughly 700 or so as of a couple of days ago, PRs that were pending. And so starting Monday, I decided to go through and kind of see which ones were pending, how many of those actually needed to get merged in. And as of this morning, I've gone through roughly 700 PRs so far, or roughly 600 PRs so far. And of those, of the original 900, we're down to about 560 that still need to be kind of reviewed and potentially merged into the master branch. So it may seem like a lot, but originally we're at 900. So I'm actually feeling pretty good about this so far. And a lot of the changes that I've identified so far have already made it into the master branch through backports into older branches from previous attempts, and are ones that we simply won't merge in, because there'll be things like we had efforts where we were trying to fix the testing suite, and so we were skipping a lot of tests. So a lot of those PRs simply won't be going into master. So as I said, as things stand right now, we're at about 560, and we identified another 100 to 200 PRs that we think can go in, can get merged into master automatically. So our efforts right now is just to slowly kind of whittle down that number to get back to get as many of those previous PRs that went into other branches into the master branch as possible.
So the 100 that can be merged automatically, that's part of that 560 that's still remaining?
I believe so, yes. So I actually, myself and Wayne, we were kind of running through the pending PRs to identify which ones. And it was actually done before I kind of went through the long list of pending PRs. So that number might shift slightly depending on which ones what the longer list looks like at when I'm finished here.
That's great.
Gareth, the number of PRs you're mentioning, is that only backports from the other branches, or is it including all PRs that are currently open?
No, this is just the this is not open PRs. This is just the pending PR, or the ones from the backports.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the ones that are pending are ones that will address those backports PRs. We still have probably, I think it's like maybe 50 or 60 ones that are pending that are backports. But the ones that I'm running through are just ones that have been previously merged into other branches.
Okay, it looks like we had a question too in the chat. Can the community help with any of this?
Absolutely. I mean, as far as like the analysis of it, I'm, like I said, I'm really close to being almost done with this. But once we get the final list, if anyone wants to kind of start going through and identify ones from even ones that they had previously done into the branches, they know the code, and therefore like they should be able to like easily get those into master. But once we get that final list, it's we can post the link into the various Slack channels, and you can just please, yes, definitely help us out, go through. The biggest hurdle right now is that we do want to make sure that those PRs, even the backports, especially the backports, have tests, and a lot of them originally did not. And so we want to make sure that like any new PRs get tests. And again, like if anyone needs help writing tests, please ping one of us on the core team, and we will definitely help you write tests.
And on that note, next week, instead of a traditional open hour, we're going to be doing a testing clinic. So we'll spend most of the hour kind of talking through best practices for tests and that sort of thing. So if you have questions about testing, that is a great open hour to join.
Yeah, it looks like there's another comment in the chat. By the way, the comments seen in develop channel have been around not getting support from SALT when a PR can't be automatically merged.
Sure, yeah, so there are a lot of them, and part of this effort is looking at those ones that don't need to be merged, either because the changes have already gotten into the branch, which is a lot of them that I'm finding. There's about, of that 900 originally, there's about like 220 so far that the changes already exist in master. And so there's no need for that PR to be backported. So of the ones that are left, I'm hoping that either a lot of them could be automatically merged and we can add tests, or for those ones that don't have tests, or the list of ones that we then need to manually backport into master is significantly smaller. So yeah, I think one of the challenges originally and initially was that we had this long list of 900, almost 1,000 PRs, and so just looking at that number, that sheer number of PRs is quite daunting. And so again, like my hope is that we can get that number down to a more manageable amount.
Yeah, and another comment about the testing part, is there any official update docs anywhere? And I don't I don't know that we have updates on docs necessarily. Gareth or Megan?
So we do have, there is a doc on writing tests. And then as Cassandra said, like next week, we're going to do like a testing clinic.
I'll also add to that. I updated a lot of the docs for when we migrate to PyTest. So those will be improved as well. Also includes the changes to Knox, which makes things a lot easier. You'll be able to run the test and it installs all the pip dependencies for you. So I don't want to merge that in until we actually have PyTest merged in, which will be post 2000.1 release.
And if
Do you have a, go ahead.
If you're really curious about testing or want to look into that more, the next test work group meeting is April 8th at 11 a.m. Eastern. So that'd be another place that you can come and bring up testing questions and things. And you don't, even if you can't make it to every single work group meeting, stop in and see if there's areas you can help or things you can learn. Any other PR, backlog, test related questions? All right, Sage is going to give us a little flyover then of the currently being worked dashboard.
Oh yes, so this is to address the backlog of PRs that are open, similar to what Gareth is working on. He's working on the ports master, and we're looking at just everything that's open, and we're really trying to address that. We realize there's some aging PRs, Cedric, as you mentioned, and we did make a dashboard. I don't know that it's still kind of a work in progress. Please forgive me, I'm not a Python developer. I am a project manager and a Scrum Master, so I don't write code. But I don't have the automation quite right in this project board just yet, and I'm looking to update that, probably with some help from some of the Python developers I do know, because I know a few. There's a few around, you know, they're busy. But also looking to make sure that this is more visible to people. Here's the project board, I put that in the chat. And looking at how these are assigned, we're also looking at doing some other things in the future to try to burn this backlog down. Some code jams that are either internal or external, and looking to make that worthwhile. That there's more to come about that. We haven't planned this just yet, just sort of announcing those. I think we announced them last time that that's what we're looking at, and going to continue. And right now, we're also looking at doing some analysis on what needs to be looked at first. As we are moving away from 3000.1 release and we're looking towards the sodium release, we are looking to merge in Black as well as PyTest. And then from there, that will help us to also determine what needs to come next as well. And open to some feedback from the community. I want to hear from you guys. But I hope that's at least giving you some visuals.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Just having that insight should be a big help for people. And that's one of the goals we're striving for here is a little bit more transparency and just people knowing, hey, where's my stuff? So
absolutely. And we want to show it to you.
And then it helps you all figure out where and how to contribute, or gives you some direction. So cool. And then where are we on the two-factor authentication thing while we're
yeah, so two-factor authentication. Today, we'll probably send out a larger communication. We will start removing access. There are some people that I've not been able to get in touch with independently that are part of our org that do not have two-factor enabled. And hopefully that will bring people out of the forest, so I can get in touch with them and get them enabled and then bring them back to the org. We've tried to make that communication widely known that it's very important for our security to have that on for each individual that's with us inside that org. As we look to make this work group for formulas, we are going to ask that the work group, as you guys come in, if you either have a separate profile for GitHub that's going to be part of that work group that does have two-factor auth enabled, we would like to do that, or if you can enable that on your current one that you're using. So just a heads up, because we want to work with the community and we want to do that, but security is pretty important. So today I'm going to start looking at that one more blast of communication, and then we'll start removing excess. Hopefully that will only be good.
Yes, thank you. That's the end of the formal agenda. So does anybody have additional questions, comments, things you'd like to bring up? This is the time.
Quick question. I have submitted some SaltVert related Google Summer of Code project IDs for libvirt organization. I can obviously mentor for libvirt and the libvirt and Salt side. I can find someone else from libvirt as well to help me mentoring. Would there be someone from the Salt community interested in helping mentoring? Due to COVID-19, Google is advising to have 3 mentors for each student.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this libvirt you said it is?
Pardon?
Oh, can you tell us a little bit more about libvirt you said is the organization?
Yeah, I send that. I did that part of the libvirt organization.
Okay.
So I'm admin there, admin and mentor there. And well, I can find some mentors in the libvirt side of things, but maybe someone with Salt knowledge would be interesting as well to help me mentoring if needed.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what that organization does?
So Cassandra, libvirt is a virtualization library, and
Okay.
we have a fair amount of support inside of Salt for libvirt. A lot of that was originally written by me. It's been revamped by a few others. I'd need to double check and see who the most recent person who's worked on that is, so that we could get you a mentor on that. And that, I think that would be a very beneficial thing.
Well, I'd say the one that wrote most of the code recently is me. So we'll need to find someone else in case I'm ill or on vacation or something else.
Okay. I was going to say, I'm tempted to throw my hat in the ring, but I don't have a whole lot of free time. So I mean,
Yeah, I think it's something we can probably take back, and Tom, you could probably help guide someone on this side.
Okay.
It may not be, or it may be worth asking that question in general or something too in Slack and see if there's somebody out there who
Yeah, sure.
want to help with that. Anybody else questions? No, all right. Well, that's everything from the agenda, and it doesn't seem like anybody else has questions, but definitely throughout the week as things occur to you, reach out, message me, DM me, send something through that agenda submission form. And then, like I said, next week for this, we will be doing a testing clinic, and then the following week, it'll be back to a more open discussion.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for attending. It's a fantastic turnout.
Yeah, biggest turnout yet, I think. We're up to 27 people, so.
Yes, everybody stay well.
Yes, stay well, stay safe.